Although it doesn't really feel like it, there are plenty of horror movies still slated for the upcoming days. Many have been postponed due to theaters being closed down during Corona lockdown, but remember, when there's a will, there's a way. We might get them later, we might get them on demand, we might even see them in theaters sooner than we think. But as long as horror remains on the horizon, there is hope. Hellish, horrible hope. Hello horror heads, and welcome back to the scariest channel on YouTube, Top 5 Scary Videos. I'm your horror host, Keegan Hughes, and today we're going to be taking a look at the top 5 scary new horror movies still coming in 2020. Before we get started, make sure to give this video a big thumbs up and subscribe for more future films. Perfect, let's begin. Coming in at number 5, we've got A Quiet Place Part 2. After the gigantic success of the initial entry in the series, it was a no-brainer to greenlight Part 2. Hell, it's even part of a pretty popular subgenre of horror movies, specific sense scares. There's Don't Breathe, there's Bird Box, and of course, there's A Quiet Place. John Krasinski takes the helm on this once more, remaining in the director's seat and still managing to get an acting credit despite what happened in the first. It seems as though Part 2 will take place immediately following the events of the first movie. Makes sense, considering the attachment most folks now feel towards the Abbott family. The trio must grab their baby and run as their family home is no longer safe from the creatures. Speaking of creatures, if I'm to believe the trailer, we'll be seeing a whole lot more of them this time. The big, brown, blind beasts are back and more bloodthirsty than before. However, it also looks like they're far from the only threat in Part 2. As we all know, when the world falls apart, it's really other humans that cause the most trouble. Forget the nuclear destruction or zombification of large portions of the planet, leave it to people to really screw things up. It almost feels a little bit like a Walking Dead type situation with lots of grays and browns and a compulsive need to stay quiet. Add in some less than friendly survivors trying their best to keep what's theirs, and you've got a scary post-apocalyptic world to navigate. Sequels tend to be a little dodgy in the horror world, so Krasinski and co have done their best to ask some fan favorites to the mix. Of course, the dad from the first film will be making some flashback appearances, and Cillian Murphy of Peaky Blinders fame is taking over as the new stoic male presence. All in all, it looks like they're doubling down on what made the first so successful while adding in some new elements to keep it fresh. Maybe we'll find out where those things actually came from this time. Hopefully we won't need any whiteboards though. Coming in at number 4, we've got Antebellum. Before the war. Literally, that is the definition of antebellum. Of course, this has taken on other meanings over time and is largely associated with the pre-Civil War times these days. Scary times indeed. This is an interesting flick with a sparse marketing strategy and a really big insistence on reminding people that the producer of Get Out and Us is on board. Not Jordan Peele though. I know that's what they're going for, but he's not involved. This time-traveling thriller stars musical genius turned actress Janelle Monáe as a successful author who is seemingly sent back in time to antebellum America. Forced into slavery and treated extremely poorly, she's got to find a way to break free of the horrors and make it back home. It looks like there's something going on behind the scenes too. If you're chosen, your life as you know it will end, and the folks in this horrifying world seem to know that there are supernatural forces at play. It'll be interesting to see what any of this means. The people behind the flick have been pretty tight-lipped in terms of plot details so far, with only teaser trailers being released. Antebellum was originally scheduled to release in April, but has since been pushed to August due to the virus. So put on your patient pants, we're gonna have to wait a little while longer to find out what all this vague terror amounts to. Coming in at number 3, we've got Malignant. I love me some original ideas in horror. Don't get me wrong, sequels can be fun, but it's very rare for a horror follow-up to outdo the original. James Wan is well known these days for making big bucks on the back of his Conjuring universe, and most of the sequels and spin-offs tend to be a little less interesting than their predecessors. However, all of the fantastic frights he puts out before cashing in on sequels are excellent. Think back to the 2000s when he co-created Saw and took the world by storm on a tiny budget. Or how fresh and interesting Insidious and The Conjuring felt before spawning entire series. The man knows how to make ideas work. So when I learned that he was directing an original thriller not based on any existing IP, I got excited. Malignant is another flick nobody knows too much about. Wan is directing and has a co-writing credit, which tends to be a good sign. In terms of plot details, there are no plot details. It's mostly denials rather than confirmations at this point, but we do know that there's no superhero influence here, which is good. Folks have also discovered that Malignant is supposedly paying homage to the Italian murder mystery slasher genre Giallo. We'll see if there's any Argento or Bava influence in there. Hearing that a big-name director is running with a heavily stylized and somewhat niche subgenre gives me hope. Here's to the big Giallo comeback of the 2020s. Coming in at number 2, we've got Spiral. Heading off in a totally different direction, here's a new take on the Saw series. Spiral from the Book of Saw is classified as a spin-off, not a reboot. It makes sense, considering that interest in the Saw series looked like it was cooling down after the release of Saw 3D. Sure, Jigsaw did relatively well, but claimed nowhere near as much attention or money as the OGs. Chris Rock actually stepped in to take the lead on this flick, being a big fan of the franchise himself. He had an idea for a Saw story and approached Lionsgate with it. They liked the direction he was pitching and greenlit it, giving Rock a starring role as well. The title, Spiral, is a reference to the paint on the cheeks of Billy the Doll, everyone's favorite mascot. It's going to take place in the same universe as all the other Saw movies, following the events of every other flick. We've got Chris Rock as a loose cannon detective and Samuel L. Jackson as what appears to be his father. And yes, he does say motherf***. Spiral actually kind of feels a little like an alternate universe 7. It's got a new dad / loving husband on the beat with obvious worries about his wife. Add in some mysterious murders all following a deliberate theme and a maniacal madman behind the scenes, and you've got yourself some Fincherian fun on the horizon. It even looks like 7 with a similar color scheme, and there's a box that may or may not contain human remains. It would be really cool to have a situation where the detectives find evidence of traps having gone off and having to piece together exactly what happens as opposed to watching the torture itself. The baddie's MO in this flick seems to be killing cops too, so audiences might just find themselves cheering for the killer. Unfortunately, Spiral has been pushed right out of 2020 and is now looking like it'll release in 2021. We'll see if they can breathe fresh life into the Saw franchise. And finally at number 1, we've got The Green Knight. If you've seen the trailer for this, you'll know exactly why it tops today's list. If you haven't seen the trailer, go watch it now. My goodness. We all fear, but fear can be a gift. Wise, wise words. This modern take on the tale of Sir Gawain and the Green Knight looks like Dark Souls and Hereditary had a baby. A beautiful A24 back Dev Patel starring baby. The original poem of the Green Knight is great, the timeless tale of a chivalrous hero journeying to test his abilities. And we're definitely getting some beheading. This is another flick that little is known about, but if we look at the poem itself, we can make some guesses. Gawain, the youngest of King Arthur's knights, takes a challenge from the mysterious Green Knight. This emerald individual appears at a New Year's celebration and challenges any knight to strike him with his axe. Anyone brave enough to do so will receive the ornate weapon as a gift. The only catch is that the Green Knight will be allowed to return the blow in a year and 1 day. Gawain takes up this challenge and beheads the knight in 1 blow. The Green Giant then picks up his head and reminds Gawain of their appointment in some 365 odd days. From there, he heads out on a journey to test his mettle and define his character. It seems that the upcoming filmic adaptation has him adventuring to prove his worth in the eyes of his family and kingdom, and boy are there some wild ways to do so here. The trailer contains a multitude of haunting images and sounds to say the least. We've got a creepy puppet show complete with a gory, yarny beheading. We've got more spontaneous flames than you can shake a stick at. We've got a giant's hand appearing over the hills, shrouded in mist. And of course, there's the Green Knight himself, gnarled and stoic. The Green Knight seems to be a spine-tingling take on the classic legend, and each day I go without seeing it, I get a little sadder. 2020 TBD. We'll see what happens. What a slate going forward. Hopefully we get some of these on demand if public screenings aren't possible. What did you think of the list? What upcoming horror are you most looking forward to? Make sure you let me know down in the comments. Speaking of comments, let's take a look at some of your more snappy ones from the top 5 weirdest horror movies you need to see to believe. Scare Hunter says, as my mom always says, normal is just a setting on the washing machine. Your washing machine has settings? Lucky. Dragon Boy says, there goes my food. And what perchance does a dragon boy usually eat? Chickens? Live toddlers? Underdog 47 says, I can think of a few more weird like the Greasy Strangler, Slither, and The Void. All great weird flicks, but they've all been talked about in previous weird horror videos. And Kush Kumar says, too freaking awesome. You freaking know it. And Matt Teteus says, you look like a 90s youth counselor. You're damn right. Now, I just gotta get this time machine up and running. And that's all the time we have for today. Before I throw some axes in a rubber room, make sure to give this video a big thumbs up and subscribe for more upcoming unease. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Makes sense considering the attachment makes sense considering the attachment some flashback appearances. Wow. Is turned actress Janelle Monáe and is the people behind the flick have been pretty tight-lipped and He had an idea. Whoop. Ugh. TBT. Whoop.